one of the biggest mistakes in spiritual and manifestation communities is the push to just think positive and skip the grief work. Here's what I know to be true from 30 years of working with people's bodies and minds. What you do not process, it gets stored in the body. It gets stored in you, in your nervous system, and most importantly, in your patterns. Welcome to Collective Guidance. I'm your host, Charla Goodnight, and I am so grateful to have you here. Today's episode is something that's been stirring in me for the last couple of weeks that I've been wanting to share with you guys. And I want to start with a question. I want you to actually think about this question. Maybe you even need to pause to think about it, all right, before we dive into the whole episode. The question is, what if the version of your life you've been living isn't the only one available to you? What if right now there are multiple versions of your life already in motion? And the one that you're experiencing is the one that you're simply agreeing to live. That's a conversation we're having today. We're talking about timelines, what they are, how to release the ones that no longer serve you, how to consciously walk into new ones, and how to become a completely different version of yourself in the process. Quick favor though, before we jump in, if you love this show, hit subscribe and leave a little review. It only takes 30 seconds and it would mean the world to me. So please hit that subscribe button and leave a little review. Okay. This is one of those episodes that I think is going to land completely differently depending on where you are in your life journey. Really, kind of, if you've been feeling stuck, like you're living the same year on repeat, shit keeps coming at you the same way, or like something in your life is really ready to just like shift drastically, but you don't know how to make that leap, this episode's for you. And if you're already in a period of expansion, this is going to give you language and tools for what you're already experiencing. So let's dive in. What do we even mean when we talk about timelines? So in 2014, I was introduced to this woman, Lisa Brown Transcendence. And truthfully, she is on my wish list to have come on here and speak to you guys. But she talked about timelines. And this was the first time that I really started understanding them and being able to shift into new ones and release them. In the personal growth and spiritual space, a timeline refers to a specific version of yourself in your life, a path that is shaped by a particular identity or a particular set of beliefs, a particular frequency, energetic state. It is really an energetic state. That's what resonates with me most when it comes to timeline, because I know that if I shift my energy, I can walk into another timeline. So think of it this way. Right now, there is a version of you who stayed in that relationship that you left, a version who took that job that you decided not to take, a version who believed the story your family told you about who you were supposed to be, and that kept you from living your life to your fullest. And there's also a version of you who did the opposite of all of those things, who went after your dreams. There's a version of you who is living the exact life that you want to live. These aren't just hypotheticals. in the language of quantum physics and more loosely in spiritual frameworks, many of us work with parallel realities, multiple possibilities existing simultaneously until one is observed, chosen, or collapsed into experience. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not here to give you a physics lecture. I'm not a physicist, but I do want to give you a sense of why this concept has real stable grounding, because a lot of people dismiss it as wishful thinking. And I want you to know it's neither. Here's what we do know. Your brain is a prediction machine. Neuroscience tells us this is information that is coming out from neuroscientists. And they tell us that the brain doesn't passively experience reality. It constructs it based on your beliefs, past experiences, and most importantly, the stories you tell yourself every single freaking day, because we tell ourselves these same old stories over and over and over. And I've talked about this before. This is called the Reticular Activating System, or your RAS. And this system filters what you perceive. All right. It filters everything that you perceive. If you believe you're someone who struggles with money, your RAS confirms that belief. If you shift your identity, your brain begins filtering reality differently. And I want to get you to understand this. That is timeline shifting, not magic, not bypassing the real world. It's rewiring your perceptual system to align with a new version of reality, visualizing your body being able to run after years of not being able to run, visualizing your body healthy, your abundance coming to you. And I get it from the spiritual side, many traditions, including astrology, human design, and the manifesting frameworks, they speak to the idea that we carry blueprints. All right. It's potential pathways. Some call them soul contracts. And I'm going to do an episode on soul contracts too, because I know a lot about that. What they all share together is the idea that there is a version of your life that's more aligned with your essence, and that it requires you to actively in your brain choose it. So a timeline, practically speaking, is this. It is the lived experience that results from a particular set of beliefs, identity, and energetic state. When those shift, the timeline shifts. The most important thing that I think that I want you to take away from this is you are not your timeline. You are the one who chooses it. So if we're talking about you're the one who chooses it, how can you step into a new timeline? And to step into a new timeline, we have to talk about what keeps us anchored in the old one. In 2014, when I was introduced to Lisa Transcendence Brown's work, she has a meditation about clearing timelines in your sleep and about releasing the timelines. Because the thing is that if we don't release the ones we're anchored into, we can't create a new reality because we haven't released the old. And that's the thing, right? Is that like a lot of people think, well, you know, I'm trying to create a new timeline. Why is this not working? Well, it's because you didn't release the old one. All right. It's about releasing the old one to then allow yourself to walk into the new one. It's like you're boarding a new flight while you're still sitting on your old plane. You can't board a new flight if you're still sitting in your old plane. They're not going to take that boarding pass. So how do you release a timeline so you can then walk into a new one, right? First, you have to acknowledge what you're releasing. I know this sounds simple. The truth is, it's not. Most of us have an intimate relationship with our pain, our patterns, our limitations. If we keep telling ourselves the same stories about our pain, our patterns, and our limitations, then we feel safe because it's what's familiar. And the human nervous system, bless it so much, but it prefers familiar over what is good for us. So to release that timeline, the first step is getting honest with yourself. It's the question of, what's the timeline I've been living? Not the story that you're telling people at parties, but the real one. What beliefs about yourself have been running your life? You know, the things that you tell yourself, I'm not the kind of person who XYZ. People like me don't get to do XYZ. I have to work harder than everyone else to deserve XYZ. And so you got to get really clear. What version of you has been at the wheel? And I want you to get really specific here. What does this version of you believe? How did you move through the world? And how do you move through the world? What do you accept? What do you expect? And I want you to sit with that. You're identifying the character in the game that you have been playing. So identify that character and ask yourself, what do you believe? How do you move through the world? What do you accept and what do you expect? I really want you to sit with it for a moment. And once you do that, you have to grieve it. You have to let it go. You have to cry it out. You have to say, this is not who I'm going to be anymore. And this might surprise you, but one of the biggest mistakes in spiritual and manifestation communities is the push to just think positive and skip the grief work. Here's what I know to be true from 30 years of working with people's bodies and minds. What you do not process, it gets stored in the body. It gets stored in you, in your nervous system, and most importantly, in your patterns and how you operate in life. If you are releasing a timeline, even one that caused you pain, there's going to be a grieving process because you are stepping into a higher frequency version of yourself, because that timeline, as limited it may have been, that also felt like home. It was what you've known, the version of you who lived like it was real, was trying their best, was probably keeping you safe in ways you haven't fully acknowledged. So before you try to shift timelines, I want you to honor what you're leaving behind. Now, not clinging to it, honor it. There's a difference. A simple practice for this is write a letter to your old self, the one who lived this timeline. Thank yourself. Acknowledge what you survived. Tell yourself you're not abandoning yourself. You're evolving. And then for me personally, when I write letters to myself and to my universe, I burn it. You always want to burn it safely. You want to have a bowl of water next to it. This puts it out into the universe and clears it most importantly, your body needs to participate in this release. Also, you can say before you go to bed every night, I release all timelines that are not for my highest soul self. I release them from my body. I am not that version of myself anymore. The third thing that you can do is cut the energetic cords. I have a energetic cord cutting spray that I'll just spray around me to clear timelines or even Palo Santo. And whether you work with this literally or metaphorically, I want you to think about the threads, the energetic threads that tie you and your old timeline. These are often energetic threads such as people's expectations, old vows you made consciously or unconsciously, agreements you took that were actually never yours to begin with. I remember not too long ago, someone said, I made this agreement, but it wasn't for me. And so you have to cut the cord. We have energetic cords. And sometimes I'll even just, do this to my body and to the back of me and to my heart. A cord cutting practice doesn't mean you're literally cutting people out of your life. It means you're releasing the energetic agreements that tether you to a particular version of yourself. And you can love someone, but still not carry out the story about who you are, right? You can cut that out. Meditation that I like is you get really quiet. You just close your eyes, you get really quiet in your head. And then you start seeing the energetic cords that are connected to you. And you can recognize those, right? And one by one, with those cords, you just release them. You just gently rip them away. And you can say something like, I release this agreement. I release the cord of attachment to energetics that no longer serve my soul self. This no longer defines me, and I am free to be who I want to be and how I want to live. And then you just say, thank you so much for the gift. And I appreciate you releasing. And I can feel that right now in my stomach, releasing that energy right there. And the fourth thing, and I think that this is huge, you need to stop rehearsing the old timeline. You need to stop telling yourself the same fucking story. You need to get control of your mind. And when that story comes up, you need to tell yourself, stop it. That story is no longer part of me. I release that timeline. Every time the story of your failure or every time you catch yourself in the loop of this is how my life goes, fucking stop it. Stop. Because what you are doing is connecting yourself back to that timeline. Anytime you think of something that is not in alignment with love, you are attaching yourself to a timeline that is not for you. All right. You are booking a return ticket on that flight you just tried to get off of. And I want you to know this is not about toxic positivity. You're allowed to have feelings, but there's a difference between processing an experience and performing it, putting it on replay in your mind and keep thinking about it. The goal in this is to process it, move the energy, and then let it complete. Clear the timeline. And awareness is everything here. Repeating the same story over and over and over and over and over again, it's only going to keep you where you don't want to be. And this is about walking into new timelines. It's about a gentle redirect to be able to walk in to new timelines. So how do you consciously walk into a new timeline? You've done the release work. You don't have the loop going on and the broken record coming back on and on and on. Once that is done, this is the exciting part. How do you actually step in to a new timeline? So the first step is, right? Get clear on who you are in this new timeline. Get clear on who you are in this new timeline. Notice I didn't say get clear on what you want, because the new timeline is not about what you want. It's about who you are and how you feel. And manifestation research and spiritual traditions both point to the same thing. Identity comes before the outcome. So being in that identity comes before the outcome. You don't get your way into a new timeline until you become your way in it. Who you are in this new timeline is so different than getting clear on what you want and what you want to manifest. So the question is not, what do I want to happen? The question is, who is a version of me for whom that thing is already normal, right? And so this is another thing that Joe Dispenza does really, really well in his meditations. Number one, he has you do heart brain coherence, where you get really deep into your heart. You're clearing the old version of yourself. You're no longer thinking of the old version of yourself. And then he has you go into, what does your new life feel like? Who is the version of you in this new act, in this new life? How do they act? What do they do? Once you get into that, then everything else will come about. Like if you want financial abundance, the question is, what do you believe about money? This new version of yourself, what do you believe about money? How do you make decisions regarding money? How do you talk to yourself and about yourself? What are the things that you say to yourself? If you want a deeply aligned relationship, what does the version of you who has that relationship believe about love? And what do you believe about your own worthiness, most importantly? If you want a thriving business, a healthy body, or a life that has tons of expansiveness and freedom, the question is, what is the identity of the person that is living that life? That's the North Star, how you feel in this timeline that you are moving into, because it's not a destination that you're trying to go to. It's the person, the version of you that is higher and vibes higher. Step two, if you want to jump into that new timeline, Begin living in the frequency of that timeline now. This is where embodiment practices come in. I have realized through work that this is where my background in fitness and spiritual work collide in a way that I just love so much, because your body carries your identity. The way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you hold tension, your body is communicating constantly with your nervous system and who you believe yourself to be. Your nervous system is who you believe yourself to be. When you move like the person you're becoming, when you breathe like them, when you take up space like they do, you begin to encode that identity within you and that identity within your cells. And then the next thing you know, you're living that life. Now, this is not about performance. It is not about pretending. This is what the body knows as rehearsal, as the becoming. The same way an athlete has to mentally rehearse before a competition, the body gets to respond as if it's real, because the nervous system is like, yes, it is real. It is very real. Feeling safe financially is real, and you have to feel it. You have to own it. Some practices that I like to incorporate to feel this more and bring it into my life, especially when I want to step into new timelines, is a morning embodiment. And this one is when you're still in bed, before you get out of bed, right when you open your eyes, do not touch your phone. Do not touch your phone. The first thing that you should be doing is taking 2 to 3 minutes to really feel into the timeline you're choosing. What does that timeline feel like in your body? What is that energy like? And how does it resonate with you? It is the best thing when you let it inhabitate you and it grow in you. That feeling of that timeline that you're walking in. Another thing that I like to do is movement with intention. I went to Tony Robbins to his Date with Destiny, and they did incantation. And in the incantation, it was walking and saying your statements. And there is something about when you exercise, feeling who you're becoming, because when you're exercising, you're releasing the old version of you. So let your workout be an act of devotion to your future self. See yourself releasing the old version of yourself and see yourself becoming that new version of yourself. My friend Carrie, she loves doing the scripting. Scripting is you write from the perspective of the version of you as if it is already your current life. Present tense, full sensory details. And this is a not I can, not I want. It is a I have, I am, I feel, and it is all in your present. Listen to that, present tense. So use present tense words. It really shows her that she's an incredible timeline shifter. Step 3 is you want to make some decisions from the new timeline. If you want to walk into the new timeline, go ahead and start making decisions from the new timeline, because this is where people stall the most. they do the visualization, they journal, they feel good, and then they go and they make the old decisions because that is the familiar, and the familiar feels safer than taking new actions from the new timeline, making new decisions from the new timeline. Every decision you make is a vote for a timeline. Get that. When you say yes to something, that belongs to your old story. You are voting for that timeline to appear in your life. So know this, when you say yes to something that scares you a little bit, but aligns you with who you're becoming, that's a vote for the new timeline. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Okay, I'm not saying that, but start noticing, is this decision coming from the old version of me or the new one? And I've recently had to do that a lot because there's been a lot of things that I've been doing that have been scaring me, really putting myself out there even more. And so I've had to ask myself, is this decision coming from the old version of me, or is it coming from the new one that I am creating? One more thing here, which I feel is really important that's coming to me, is let the new timeline be easy. One of the biggest signals that you're in the right timeline is that things just start to flow. Synchronicities, doors opening, things happening where you're like, oh, that was super easy. The right people appearing. When you're in the right frequency and the right energy, your universe is going to meet you there. It's not a coincidence. That is what is called alignment. Alignment is when your frequency matches that which you are becoming, because becoming the new version of you who you really want to do, that's at the heart of everything. Timelines are not just external, they're internal. The biggest shift isn't in your circumstances, it's in who you are becoming. You are no longer allowing that person to get you off course. You're on your course and you're okay with what anyone else thinks because you are doing you. I want to talk about what it means to really become that new version of yourself, because I don't want this to be romanticized without a lot of grounding, making it practical. I want to be very clear. Becoming is not erasing. All right. We're not erasing the old you. We are shifting into a new version of you. And the new version of you doesn't eliminate who you've been. We integrate who you've been. We carry wisdom, the resilience, the hard won knowing, the knowledge we have gained. And you shed the parts of you that were never actually you, like the coping mechanisms, the armor, the smallness that you adopted to be acceptable to society, right? I think this is where some reptiles, especially like snakes, right? Snakes shedding its skin, or like the lizard chameleon being able to change its color easily. Shedding the skin for the snake doesn't mean the snake dies. It means that it's growing and that the old version of them is no longer there. But the old skin served a purpose. And that is our past. The old us served a purpose, but at a certain point, the old us becomes a limitation, and the new us is always there underneath, just waiting to be revealed. The other dimensions of us are waiting to be revealed. Identity shifting doesn't require repetition. It requires you choosing to become a new version of yourself. And the thing is, it's not a one-time event. It's a practice. It's a choosing again and again and again and again to respond from the new identity instead of the old one. It's not just this like, oh, I'm going to shift into a new timeline and now I'm this new person. No, it is a continuous practice. When an old pattern comes, an old thought comes up, old voice says, who do you think you are? The new version of you says, I know exactly who I am. It is a continuous practice every single day, over and over, until the new identity becomes the default. Your default mechanism is the new identity. This is why I believe that nervous system work and somatic practices and movement matter so much for us, because old patterns are stored in the body, not just in the mind. It is literally stored in the body. And if you listen to that episode with Adrienne on breath work, she talks about how she healed herself from one breath work experience that therapy was taking forever with. And that's why, like, breath work, yoga, intentional movement, even like a powerful workout, I believe that these are not separate from our spiritual evolution. I believe that movement is part of it. I believe that movement allows us to release energy and get back to our soul self. And I want you to know this right here. You do not need permission to become who you already are. You can transform yourself to a higher state of consciousness at any moment. And you do that by releasing energy and meditation. And you can walk in to new timelines easily by incorporating this. This is a part I want to leave you with, because this is the thing I see that holds people back the most. We are waiting for some external signal, some sign, some achievement, some moment where we've earned the right to step into the version of ourselves that we know we're here to be. I want to tell you this. You don't need permission. The permission does not come from outside of you. It comes from within you. It comes from within you. The timeline doesn't begin when the circumstances change. The new timeline begins the moment you decide, you choose. And I want you to know that moment is now. It has always been now. So before I let you go, I want to give you one reflection prompt to carry with you for this week. Ask yourself, what timeline have I been living? And what timeline am I ready to choose? And I say this because I did this recently. I reflected and I said, what timeline am I living in? Did I create for myself? And what timeline am I ready to choose? And I chose a different timeline, and I took care of the situation and the circumstance, and I jumped into a new timeline. And once I did that, the next day I woke up and I felt fucking amazing. And I know that if I can do it, you can too. This is not just intellectual. All right. You have to feel it. Let yourself get honest. And just like I did, take one action, just one. Make the phone call, send the email, move your body, cook something healthy for yourself. Call up that coworker and ask them if they want to go to a yoga class. Because I want you to know, taking that one action belongs to the new version of you. And that action does not have to be a huge leap. It can just be a quiet yes, a boundary, a walk, a conversation you've been putting off, one decision made from the divine human you're becoming rather than the one you've been. And that's how timelines shift. It doesn't happen all at once, just one conscious choice at a time. You guys, if this episode resonated with you, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Send me a message on Instagram. I'm at Collective Guidance Podcast, or leave a review wherever you're listening. Reviews mean everything to independent podcasters, and every single one helps more people find this show. Like this episode, subscribed. And if you want to go deeper on this work, especially the embodiment piece, I want to invite you to check out the Cosmic Fire Up Challenge. It is a 5-week experience that I've co-created with astrologer Celeste Brooks. And we are combining lunar aligned astrology with intentional movement. It starts on April 9th. Like I said, it's 5 weeks, and it's exactly this kind of work. Using the energy of the cosmos to step into a new version of yourself, backed by movement that makes it real. Real in your body. The link is in the show notes. You can also go to collectiveguidance.com/Cosmic Fire Up Challenge. All right, my beautiful souls. And I'm so grateful to have you here. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. If you haven't listened to the episode with Adrienne Rivera, I highly recommend it on breathwork. It was great. I want you to know, keep trusting yourself, keep growing, keep choosing yourself, and most importantly, walk into that next timeline that you know is yours. Much gratitude.